Now that we've got some of the preliminaries out of the way in the previous videos, let's go ahead and play a round or two with the game and see how things all work. So first of all, I'm going to play just with the red player. Red player is up in the northwest corner of the map. And what we have is one city with a population of 6. So we're going to set down a population token there, and we'll place the city, capital city marker on top of it. So the population is 6. The city tile is a plains tile, and right now it has a mine, an oil well, a factory, and a farm. Those are the city improvements. It also has 2 other spots here which have not yet been prospected for. So we're going to put a couple of prospecting tokens on those just to remind us to do some prospecting later on. The sequence that we're going to go with are, first of all, the first player tasks. So the player that has possession of the first player token, in this case the red player, is going to go ahead and do 2 actions. Number 1, they're going to collect coin, and number 2, they're going to draw an action card. So the coin collection comes from the population of the capital city for the empire. We only look at the capital city. In this case, as we said before, it's 6. So we go to the player mat and run up the ones counter for coin up to 6. So now we have 56 coin at our disposal. The second action is to draw an action card. So first player task, remember the only player in the game that's allowed to do this is the one holding the first player token. So here's our action deck, and we go ahead and flip over the card. See that it's a scrapyard. So we gain 1 extra metal per cycle. Now in order to keep that, we have to pay 10 coin. If we don't, this just goes into the discard pile, and it may or may not ever come up again in the game. So let's go ahead and keep that, and I'll go back to my player mat and remove 10 coin, indicating that I have purchased the card. So we'll place our scrapyard card next to our player mat so we have it for future reference. And now we'll go on to the next phase, which is production. There's 2 phases in the production phase, the production cycle, and they are harvest and a culture roll. So let's go ahead and harvest here first. Now, one important thing to remember, this is the basic rules for the game, so we're not using seasons. If we are, we would take a look at the turn tracker and see what kind of season it is. So we're beginning the game here, and my cycle marker is on 1925. You'll see it has a white background, which indicates that it's winter. And in winter, in the advanced game, the harvest rules change a little bit, but we don't have to worry about that since we're playing the basic game. So what we're going to do is gain 1 metal, 1 oil, 1 factory good, and 1 food unit to put on our player mat. So we'll increase food by 1, factory goods by 1, metal by 1, but then remember we just were able to acquire a scrapyard, so we add 1 more to that, add 1 oil. So those are our productions. By the way, our production level right now is 1 for all of these. If any of those were 2, we would double the amount of production units that we would get during the turn. All right, now let's go back to this. The next part of the production phase is the culture roll. Currently on the map, there aren't any of these little blue icons, these blue markers. Those are culture markers, and so we don't have any culture rolls to make because we don't have any culture markers. After all the players are done doing their production, we go ahead and enter the market phase. The player holding the first player token sets the prices, and the way that they do that is by rolling dice. So we're going to roll the dice in succession here. Once for food, once for factory goods, once for metals and once for oil. So I go ahead and roll the dice, and I roll a 5. I look at the row up here that indicates price changes. 5 increases the level by 1. So the price of food has jumped from 5 to 6. My second roll, which is for factory goods, is a 7. 7 indicates that there's no change, so the price remains at 5. The third roll is for metals. I roll an 11. 11 indicates that the price has dropped by 2 units. And finally, we find the price of oil. It's currently 5. I rolled a 6. 6 indicates an increase of 1. So the price of oil has increased from 5 up to 6. All players now have the ability to buy or sell resources. So we first of all go back to our player mat and check out how many resources we have. I'm finding that I don't have a whole lot of food to do what I'd like to do, so it'd be nice to be able to buy some of that. However, the price of 6 is a little bit high, so we'll hold off on doing that for now. Price of factory goods is 5. Price of metals is only 3. So although I have 2 metals, it's a little bit of a high price, or a low price, so I probably won't do anything there. And finally, I have 1 oil. The price of oil is tempting at 6, but if I sell oil, I won't be able to move, since I only have 1 unit of oil. So we're going to hold pat for this round and just keep what we already have. Next phase is to build and deploy. I'm going to look at this. My army consists right now of an infantry unit and 1 artillery unit. I could go ahead and build something if I'd like to. In order to do that, I need to take a look at the costs. This is on the battle map. Infantry costs 1 food, 1 factory good, 0 metal, and 5 coin. Artillery costs 0 food, 2 factory goods, 2 metal, and 10 coin. I'm not able to buy armor or air units at this time, since I've not yet discovered the technology for it. I'm going to go ahead and produce 1 infantry. So we need to spend 1 food, 1 factory good, and 5 coin in order to do that. So that's what we'll do. We'll lower our food by 1, factory goods by 1, and then reduce our coin from 56 down to 51. Then we'll go ahead and place another infantry marker in Depot 1. And remember, Army 1 is right now located on the capital city. The next part of the market phase is to prospect. So if I look at the map, I have 2 prospecting tokens on my tile. I go ahead and roll and consult my prospecting grid. So my first roll is a 1 and a 5, and this is red, red 1, 5 black, so for 15. What I do then is consult the prospecting grid. I find the red 1, I find the black 5, and then what I do is intersect the 2. So row of 1, 5 falls in this neighborhood. Here's my 1, here's my 5, and it belongs in one of these items in this row. Which one? Well, it would be P, since the capital city is sitting on a plains hex. So if you look to the right, you can see there's a key. P stands for plains. So if I carry down and cross-reference this, it has a gray mark on it, which means that we can produce a mine if we so choose. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to take and remove my prospecting token and put a mine improvement on the city tile. Now we'll go ahead and roll again. And this time I've rolled a 23. So 2, 3, so 23 below the P item is gold, which is a farm. So I go back to the tile and replace the prospecting token with the yellow improvement token. During the next harvest, then, I'll be able to collect 2 food and 2 metal due to these improvements, along with my oil and my factory. Next phase is the movement phase, and first is indigenous movement. Indigenous characters aren't involved in the basic game, so we'll skip that and go straight down to the move section. The first player gets to move first. The player clockwise to the player holding the first player token moves second, and the other player moves third. We have 1 oil, so we're able to move an army by 1 hex. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take Army 1 and we're going to move it into this next plain section. We then need to remove 1 oil, so now we're back down to 0. If there are any armies occupying the same hex from different characters or different empires, a battle ensues. That doesn't happen here, so we're going to go straight down to tech. Tech phase has 3 different portions: spawning scientist, tech rolls, and then advancements. So we're going to spawn scientists here first. Spawning scientists replaces some of the scientists that you may have lost otherwise. In this case, we roll a 4 and a 5. And if I look at the tech section of the market board, I can see that a roll of 1 would give me a biologist, 2 would give me a chemist, 3 would give me a physicist, and 4 would give me an engineer. I did get a 4, but I also got a 5. A 5 doesn't give me a scientist, and so that basically is a null roll or a dud. We're going to go ahead and place this on number 64. Now we do the tech rolls. The player holding the first player token is the one who conducts all tech rolls. That, however, does not mean that the other players can't acquire tech. So we'll go ahead and start our first roll, which is a 1-2. So if we look at our tech grid, the numbers are sequenced such that the red number comes first, so this entire column is red 1, and the black numbers come second. So a roll of 1-2 is right here in this spot. It's not occupied by a scientist, and so therefore there is no tech point allotted to any of the players. That's our first dud, therefore we mark that with a 1. Once 3 duds have come up, the tech roll portion is complete. Now we roll again, and we get a 2-4. 2 is in this column, 4 is in this row, so 24, that is presently occupied by the blue player. The blue player, therefore, gets a tech point in the area of physics because it's in the purple region. So on their player mat, they would move up their token in the physics portion by 1. Red, of course, didn't get this, so therefore they are not allotted a point as of yet. Time for the third roll. The third roll is a 52. 5, 2, 52 is covered by blue again. This time a tech point is awarded in the area of chemistry. So on their player mat, the blue player would move their token up 1 for chemistry. Now, because that is the second tech point given to blue this cycle, blue loses that scientist cube. And now we roll again. This time we get a 53. 53 is empty, and so we have run up our second dud. Time for our next tech roll. The roll is a 1-4. 1-4 is right here in the area of physics. So red is awarded a tech point in physics. Since that's the first tech point allotted this cycle to red, there is no penalty and the scientist is not retired. Time for the next tech roll. We get a 1-5. 1-5 is empty, so that's another dud. That's our third and final dud of the cycle, so the tech roll portion of this phase is complete. Players may now purchase advancements in technology if they have the necessary tech points. Red only has one tech point. It's in the area of physics. Everything on here requires at least one in each of the 4 different areas of science. Therefore, probably none of the players will be able to make a tech advancement this round, and so we continue. Cleanup phase consists of 2 different actions. One is repairing, the other is awarding victory points. Repair comes after a battle if there are injured units on the map. There were no battles, and therefore there are no injured units. So we skip that. And finally, victory points. If you look at your city square, there are several little markers on here. This indicates building a wonder. This indicates that your empire has at least 100 coin in its coffers. This means that you've completed a track in science or technology. This means that you won a battle as an attacker. This means that one of your cities has a population of at least 11, and this means that you've acquired 5 culture points. None of those situations are true, at least not for the red player, and therefore the cycle is complete. We now go to the cycle tracker, move it to spring of 1925, and pass the first player token to the player clockwise from player 1. The cycle begins anew with the first player tasks conducted by player 2. They collect coin. They draw an action card. Player 2 selects a card, which is a market crash. We decrease the price of each commodity by 2 levels. This is not a card that needs to be paid for, so its instructions are resolved and placed in the discard pile. To resolve this, we simply move the markers down for prices by 2 for each commodity, and then place the card in the discard pile. We now move on to harvest. Each player conducts his harvest individually. For red, that means the collection of 2 metal, 2 food, 1 oil, and 1 factory good. Red player also, remember, has a scrapyard card, so that adds an additional metal to his total. We now conduct a culture roll. The red player still doesn't have any culture improvements on the board. Ordinarily, we would set prices, however, the card drawn previously, which lowered the prices of each commodity by 2 levels, acts as the dice roll for all commodities in this round, so no roll is necessary. Players may now buy or sell commodities. The red player has 2 food and would like to expand his empire. In order to do that, they need a minimum of 5 food. We're 3 short of that, but now the price is a little bit more tempting at 4 coin per unit of food, so they choose to buy that. They presently have 41 coin, 31, drop it down 2 more, which drops us to 29 coin. That increases the amount of food for the red player up to 5. To subsidize that move, they may want to sell some resources. Presently, metal has a very low price of only 1 coin per unit, so even though player red has 5 units of metal, Price is so low that it's not really advantageous for them to sell much. We'll just sell 2 units and therefore increase our coin level by 2. It is now time to build and deploy. Each player may decide to build and/or deploy units or expand their empire. The red player at this time chooses to make a suburb next to his capital city. In order to do that, the city needs to have a population of at least 5, and the hex in which the suburb will reside cannot be next to an enemy-controlled hex. Also, the player must have an army in the hex that they wish to build upon. This is the hex where the build will occur. We're just going to slide the army marker over a little bit. We'll go ahead and place a suburb marker in the hex. Place a prospecting token on the hex tile, and it costs 5 food to make this move. After all players have completed build and deploy, we'll go ahead and prospect. The new dice roll is a 64. The tile on which the prospecting token resides is a plains hex. 64 indicates that oil has been discovered, so we will produce a refinery. A black token is taken from the pile, the prospecting token is removed, and during the next harvest, red will collect more oil. All players may now move, provided they have enough oil to do so. Red has 1 unit of oil. Therefore, they will move another hex and then remove 1 unit of oil. No battles will occur, so we're off to the spawning of scientists again in the tech phase. Each player conducts his own roll. The red player rolls a 23. This indicates a scientist is spawned in the area of chemistry and physics, as indicated by the 2 and the 3 in each of those areas. The player holding the first player token now conducts tech rolls. First roll is a 1-1. That square is occupied by red, and so red receives a biology unit. We increase the number of tech points in biology by 1 for red only, and the player holding the first player token makes the next roll. This time a 41 is rolled. 41 is right here, occupied by a red cube. The cube is removed since the red player has already received a tech point this cycle. Chemistry points are increased by 1, and the first player makes another roll. Another roll of 41 occurs. That's the first dud of the cycle, so the next roll takes place. This time a roll of 51 occurs. 51 is again occupied by a red cube. The cube is removed. The red player increases his chemistry count, tech point total by 1, and the player holding the first player token makes the next roll. This time it's a roll of 1-6. Green occupies 1-6. They earn a tech point in physics. Since they have not yet collected a tech point this cycle, they do not remove their cube, and the next roll takes place. The next roll is a 1-5. Red again scores. They remove their cube and increase their physics by 1. This roll is a 65, which is empty. That's the second dud of the cycle. New roll. Red again acquires a tech point with roll 64, which is in engineering. The cube is removed. Red increases their engineering by 1, and we conduct a new roll. The roll is 66, which is empty. That is the third dud of the cycle, and that includes the tech roll portion. We now take care of any tech advancements. The red player has at least one tech point in each of the 4 areas and chooses to make an increase in military technology for infantry. They increase their attack level by 1, so now effective hits are on rolls of 2 to 4 for red rather than 2 to 3. In order to do this, they need to pay 1 biology, 1 chemistry, 1 physics, and 1 engineering point. Therefore, each of the point totals is decreased by 1 for the red player. We now do repair and victory points. Although the red player is getting close to having completed a tech track, he hasn't made it there yet. There are no other items on the city tile which can be covered at this time. Therefore, we are at the end of the cycle, and the cycle tracker now increases. The first player token goes to the next player, and play resumes.